Party animals, like and subscribe if you want a ceiling game from your quarterback.
He's got it. Touchdown Bills on a trick play to start things off.
There's so many ways around it that it's just like it is impossible. It's impossible to get it all correct, right? It's impossible. There's literally no way you're going to prove this. Doesn't matter if you come from the same IP. Doesn't matter if you log in from the same computer. It doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do to prove this. Nothing. Zero. Someone on Twitter said similar to some sort of civil. Let me find it for you. Watch this. Who was the person that said this? The person who came in second can do something about it. File a legal claim and prove that they have been defrauded on balance of probabilities, which is the standard of proof in a civil case. This is why we got into this mess, saying you cannot prove this. Legally, you can. You cannot. You cannot do this. You cannot do this. Defrauded on balance of, good luck with that one, bro. What? Good luck with that. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. I am just going to say, what? I learned how to play from my husband, and my husband told me, he told me I should pick my favorite three quarterbacks. I picked my favorite three, even if she knows nothing. I mean, there's so many ways. Get out. There's so many ways. So here's my thing. So here's what we talked about. So knowing that nothing is going to happen, and for all of, and only one notification because I just checked it right before I went here. So here's what's going to happen. DK suspended Jade's account in September and reinstated it because she proved she was playing. Don't know specifics, but if they maintain that suspension, this doesn't happen. There's nothing that's going to be done. There's nothing that can be done. There's nothing. I've gotten my account suspended before. You can't prove anything. Literally, they ask. All they do is ask, why were you logging in from the same? I'm like, we're brothers, idiot. Like, we live in the same house. Okay, that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing. Zero. Nothing. And the worst part is, this is all taking place now, and it's going to pass by with nothing happen. He's going to keep his million. And all that's going to happen now is tomorrow, or the day of tomorrow, or the weekend that's coming up, is everyone is going to do this. Everyone is going to do this, right? Literally every single person is going to start doing, let me get my best friend, Ro, and let's do 100. Now we're going to have 300 in the milli. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get my brother, let's split profits 3 ways or split the losses 3 ways and just do, it's just extremely blatant. Now, a couple things. This has been happening for a long time, right? This has been happening for a long time. This isn't new. This has been happening for a long time. Just, it's, there again, there's all the people that complain about the double ups, nothing happens. Nothing's ever going to happen to those guys. So it's nonsense on Twitter that pops up every 2 weeks. In tournaments, it's obviously really tough because you don't just actually copy lineups. You actually want to do the complete opposite, right? So it's even harder to prove this. And even when you do find it this obvious, there's still nothing you can do. So this weekend, you're going to see that collusion is going to be at an all-time high, 100%. Now, here's what I'll say. What took us so long to do it again is the real question. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you. So if you guys heard the podcast, I mentioned in the third topic of the podcast, this was a tactic that a few guys used way back in the day. So here, I'll explain to you what I mean. Back in the day, there used to be, apart from having no entry limits, right? Apart from having no entry limits, there was a... they used to run qualifiers on 2-game slates. There was no such thing as showdown yet, right? But you remember the Sunday through Monday contest, right? Where they did Sunday night through Monday night, and it was just 2 games. When you have a small, and this only applies for NFL, because in MLB it wouldn't work. NBA, obviously, there's no stacking. But in a sport like NFL where you have the quarterback to receiver, and tight end, and whatever game stack. It works way more than an MLB stack would work. This only works in NFL, and there's never really slates where you have 2 or 3 or 4 games in NFL, except playoffs. So where the colluding actually works and is more effective is when there's a small subset of games. Yeah, it works in the normal slate to an extent, but it's still really, really difficult for you to, it's not even guarantee wins, but you can increase your probability significantly. I'll explain to you how I know this, because back in the day, there were no entry limits. So stop saying this is colluding, because there was no entry limits. I'm not colluding anything. Back in the day, there was 2 games, only 4 quarterbacks. Usually out of those 4 quarterbacks, one of them is not playable, right? One of them is usually not playable. And in those Sunday night games or Monday night games, there was always like the dumb David Blau or something, some garbage quarterback that was never in play. So you really had just 3 quarterbacks, and you could just split, if you wanted to, 100 lineups per quarterback, right? And that was honestly the best way to go about those things, is just have 100 per quarterback and say, and have tiny pools. No, you don't have. You could play almost every combination if you got around to it. Now, the extent to this would be you have that, and then at the time there was no late swap optimizer or anything, and you could almost plan out every combination, or as close to some of these combinations, the viable combinations as you can, right? When entry limits happened, and this is the main part. When entry limits happened, I just did this, but to a smaller extent. So 75-75 or 50-50-50, right? But if you were colluding, you could still do this and do it with way more lineups than everyone else, right? You have 2 accounts of 150, you do this. And I know people exploited this to get almost a guaranteed entry into every single final. Which is why, if you guys remember that time too, DK stopped running qualifiers on those slates specifically. Because people were almost guaranteeing their wins at some point, which you should never be able to do in a zero-sum game. In a game of almost chance, you should not be able to do it. You should never.